Hi everyone, it's just Jason here, popping in before this episode. Just wanted to say that as of recording this, Charlie started another podcast that's called Why Did I Do That? So I'm pretty sure as of now, no episodes have been published, but I think the social media is running on that, so I'll put some links in the episode description as well. Another thing is that obviously as this episode was recorded over Skype, as a lot of my episodes are, occasionally the line cut out a little bit. So if at any point you're thinking, well, that's some bad grammar they're using, I assure you it's just that words were lost to the internet. But I think that's everything, so enjoy the show. You're listening to A Conversation With, the podcast where each week I'm joined by a different guest and we have a conversation on a topic of their choice. My name is Jason, and joining me this week, our guest is from the Big Kahuna podcast. Please introduce yourself.
My name's Charlie. Like you said, I'm from the Big Kahuna podcast, where me and my friend try and talk about films, but we end up just going on lots of strange tangents.
Excellent. That's going to be very useful for this podcast. So tangents we accept readily. So Charlie, tell us, what's the topic we're going to be talking about today?
Today is WWE.
So WWE. Okay, a topic that I probably know very little about.
Okay.
So I'm guessing it's something you like.
I'm a very big fan of wrestling. I don't know why. It's one of those things where, like, people ask you, like, oh, why do you even like it? And, sir, it's just fun to watch. It's just fun to watch, like, sweaty men pretend to fight each other.
Pretend? What? What do you mean pretend? It's not real?
Okay, so basically, like, WWE and professional wrestling it's all, like, staged. It's all predetermined. So
I think
actually they know who's winning.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what turns most people off, maybe, is just that concept of,
that's kind of what makes it great.
Yeah, I suppose, I guess the argument of, yeah, but it's not real, well then just don't watch anything on TV, because none of it's real.
Yeah, exactly, that's how I feel. Like, you don't watch, like, EastEnders, and you're like, oh, well, Danny Dyer doesn't actually own a pub, so why am I going to watch this?
Yeah. So, how long have you been a fan, then, of wrestling?
I was a big fan when I was, like, a little kid, until I was, like, maybe, like, 9 or 10, and then sort of, it's not cool anymore to watch wrestling when you get to that age. And then I got back into it 4 years ago, and I got into it pretty hard.
When it became cool again.
Cool again, I just met someone who watched it, and I was like, I haven't watched that in ages. I'm going to give it a go. And then I just, like, got engrossed with it straight away again.
Has it changed a lot then in the time you were away?
It's got more, like, basic. There's, like, a few terms that I should probably go over, because I'll probably end up saying them at some point. And wrestling has, like, this weird, it's got its own weird language.
Okay, break it down for us then, because I'm assuming many of our guests, like myself, we probably need, a little help understanding all of this. So
yeah, the idea is that you have good guys against bad guys, and the good guys are called faces, and the bad guys are heels. So if I say face and heel, it's just that because it's easier to say that than good guy, bad guy.
Yeah, I always find the expressions good guys and bad guys really difficult to say with a straight face.
Yeah, I know.
And that's a problem, because I like comic books and things like that. So it's, well, he's the good guy and this is the bad guy. It's just
I know. Like, come on, guys, Batman's real good.
Yeah, he's definitely grey, if anything.
Yeah, so in wrestling they use face and heel, which I don't know why, but
yeah, there must be a reason for that. I'm not going to look it up, but there must be
somewhere, but I have no idea where. I haven't looked into this at all.
That's the way we like it. So, okay, anything else we need to know? Face and heel, we've got that.
So there is kayfabe, which is sort of like universe of wrestling. Right. So sort of like if two people are fighting each other, but then in real life they could be friends. So that sort of thing.
Oh, okay.
Of like when I started watching it, kayfabe has sort of disappeared now. Sort of now there's like Twitter and Instagram and stuff that are trying to like murder someone on TV and then taking a picture of them at the zoo together. So that's sort of like the main thing, is that it's not really, it's more like reality now than sort of a weird ultra masculine reality.
Yeah, I suppose they're a bit more I suppose it's like everything, isn't it? We kind of, as you say, with social media and things, we're so tied into actors, actresses, musicians, all of these things. So it's no surprise that it happens with wrestlers as well.
Exactly. Like, there's a wrestler called Kane. I don't know if you've heard of Kane. He's quite popular. He was really big a couple, like maybe like 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, and he is really big, right? He's a big guy.
Big. He is currently running to be the mayor of Nashville.
Really?
Yeah. So it's weird seeing him come out in like his big red thing and his mask, choke slamming people, and then you see him in like a press conference saying about how he wants to like clean up the streets of Nashville.
By himself, probably. He's just going to go out there.
Just walking around choke slamming people who litter.
Yeah. Well, I mean, will it work? We don't know. I mean,
exactly. We'll need to find out.
Yeah. So, so you got into it when you were very young. So, who was your sort of favorite wrestlers back then?
Hardy.
They were.
Yeah, he used to come out. He had like face paint. He had like weird multicolored hair, and he would do front flips off the top of the ropes. He was 100%. He was my favorite.
So, were you trying to copy him at home, smashing lamps, breaking the sofa?
I have a story about smashing a lamp.
All right, let's go for it.
Me and my brother, who's older than me, and my brother's friend. So we were all like wrestling together, and we were like, right, my brother, you be the ref, and me and this other guy will wrestle. So we were going for it. We were doing like all the moves, choke slams, pedigrees, doing all of it. And then my brother was counting the pinfall, being the ref, and he's the one that broke the lamp and got us banned from watching wrestling.
Well, you could have then argued, well, look, there's refs in so many other things.
I didn't think of that at the time, but I wish I did. My mum still brings it up. She's like, you watched it and you broke the lamp. And I was like, Joe broke the lamp counting the ref. That wasn't even me. It's fine.
That's got to be... It's like those kind of stories where somebody breaks their arm after some like terrible fall, and then they get up and they sort of brush the dust off themselves, and that's how they break their arm. It's just, it's the most sort of sad way to break something in a wrestling story. Out of
everything that could have happened with what we were doing, it was just done like the most pathetic way possible.
So does he still watch wrestling?
He hasn't watched it since then, probably. I think maybe it's scarred it for life for him.
All right, yeah. He just can't handle the refs.
Exactly. He gets so angry when he sees that stripy red and white top. That's why he hates Newcastle as well.
Black and white then.
Yeah, that's what I meant. What did I say, red and white?
Yeah, there's some pent-up anger there about something else, but we'll come back to that. So this story, obviously, if there's any parents listening who... telling their children, hey, don't wrestle in the house, don't, play like that, you're going to break something, just cut out that audio clip there, and you can play it to them, and they will either stop wrestling, or they will decide they don't need a ref. It's going to be one of the two options,
I feel like that's more a story of don't referee in the house.
Don't referee in the house, yeah. Which is generally the job of the parent, so...
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, dear.
I'm sure you know that very well.
I do, but I've only got one son, so he's got no one to wrestle with. It's fine. But I suppose he could referee a load of stuff on his own. Oh dear.
He could. With his toys, and he's being the ref. You need to cut that out right now.
Yeah. Just let them go. Let them be. They don't need to be controlled. It's too dangerous. So, were there any... So I quite like the questions about the ones you don't like. So you had... you say Jeff Hardy was the one you...
Hardy, yes.
You liked. Who was the wrestler you just couldn't stand?
I really hated Edge.
Right.
But I didn't realise until a couple years ago that that's just because he was good at his job.
Yeah.
Supposed to be hated, and he was the worst person for me. He stole Jeff's brother's girlfriend, which also happened in real life, but then they made a wrestling storyline about it, which is something weird that also happens sometimes.
Yeah. Art imitating life, or life imitating art, one of these things. Yeah, well, it is funny, isn't it? Because you're right, it means they're doing their job well. But
it just dawned on me like a year or two ago when I was watching like some wrestling video on YouTube or something, and they were talking about like the 10 best heels in the company history or something, and he was on the list, and I was like, oh yeah, I was supposed to hate him. I was a kid watching it. That's the whole point.
I always found it amazing that because you see these things, it's a huge industry,
massive, yeah.
And if you ever see like the I'm trying to think now, what to say, like the stadiums that they sell out, and they have these huge crowds, and somehow they are able to manipulate an entire audience into liking this person and not liking that person.
I know, it's insane. I mean, it doesn't always go the way they want it to. At the moment, there's a wrestler called Roman Reigns who they're trying to like push to the top of the company, trying to make him the big face of the company, the good guy, and everyone hates him.
Yeah.
Every time he comes out, he just gets booed out of the building. It's like 20,000 people just booing at him. Doing it for about 3 years now, and they haven't realized that if they just like turned him heel and made him be a bad guy, because everyone hates him already.
Yeah. Is there any, I don't know, any benefits you're getting then by being the good guy versus being the, I said good guy, shouldn't have said that, should I? being the, being the face against being the heel, because I guess like within movies and things like that, we quite often find the villain very compelling. Like they generally can be a bit more interesting at times than the hero.
I always prefer the villain and like the heels, and I think it would be so much more fun to be a heel because you can go out there and you can like take the mick out of the crowd. And you can just hit people with steel chairs. Whereas when you're the good guy, when you're the face, you have to come out and be like, I love being here, everything's really good, I'm friends with everyone. It just seems a bit boring.
Yeah.
So I don't know why.
I think, so for me, if you're going to talk about wrestling, probably the only sort of wrestlers that really jump to my mind are ones like The Rock, and more because of, all the movies he's been in since. But
Austin.
Sorry?
Stone Cold Steve Austin, he's usually one that jumps out at people.
Yeah, it's interesting how, because I'm not watching wrestling, yet I know so many of these people, they've really penetrated a lot of other
especially
media
like The Rock
things.
and John Cena now is sort of doing what The Rock did sort of 5 years ago, really getting more into like mainstream Hollywood.
Yeah, that's surprising. So as someone who doesn't follow wrestling, I'd seen like here and there, say a clip on YouTube or some talk show or something, and seen the odd thing of John Cena, and I didn't like him. Just the whole kind of persona that he came out with. I was just like, I'm glad I don't watch wrestling, because if this is kind of their hero, this is not for me. But I've seen him interviewed in the last couple of months probably, because he's been on different TV shows, or even a really interesting interview I had on a podcast that was all about his Olympic lifting that he does. He seems like a really nice guy.
I think a couple years ago he was sort of like the big guy in the company. Loved him. He sold the most merchandise out of like everyone. So I think then they were probably being like, you need to, whenever you go on anything, you need to act like wrestling John Cena.
Yeah.
I think now he's like more of a part-time wrestler. Like he hasn't been on it since like March.
Yeah, and what really struck me was like how humble he seemed and really down to earth in these interviews, and that is the opposite of any wrestler you ever hear sort of speaking as a wrestler, because it seems that they are. Well, I suppose because at the end it's a business, right? It's like a sport business kind of thing, but as opposed to having a team, you have an individual. So like you are your own team, and of course you're giving all the hype to yourself because it's your career. You want to be the biggest name out there to feed your family, I suppose.
He is very good at doing that. Like he is one of the best. Like it's weird because wrestling is so like physical. Like I think because people like, I don't want to say fake, because all the athleticism that they have is real, and they do have to like they do get hurt. They do have to get hit with ladders and things.
Yeah.
They're like, it's fake. I'm like, you can't fake falling like 20 foot off a steel cage through some tables.
No. I mean, you can avoid doing it. That's probably the smarter option. But yeah, you definitely can't fake that.
Yeah, but then you have to not only be good at doing like all the physical stuff, but you have to be good at acting as well. Like you have to be able to get a microphone and talk to like 15,000 people and have confidence doing it. Otherwise, like you see some people do it and it's just so awkward and horrible.
Yeah.
Really give John Cena enough credit for actually being able to do that, because he is like one of the best wrestlers of all time in like every way.
Yeah, and I suppose if you're being like, especially if you're going back to the kind of face versus heel discussion from earlier, like if you're being booed by all those people at the same time, I mean, even though you know it's fake, like, or not, it's fake. They're not booing you; they're booing your character. But still,
yeah, it still must not be nice.
Yeah. So if anybody's at home booing this podcast, please stop, because I don't like it.
This podcast is definitely a face podcast. Don't worry.
Oh, good. Yeah, I might take a heel turn eventually. Maybe around
Maybe,
episode 15, I'll just hit my guest with a mic or something and just
steel chair to Rory Spence.
Okay, well he's been on already, so we've got to wait for him to get back on. But yeah, it's such a weird thing though, isn't it? Wrestling. But I like your
it's weird,
like your comparison to it being kind of a soap opera. Like that's
much like a soap opera, but instead of people dealing with it by talking, they just get in a ring and fight.
Yeah, which probably sounds like a lot of soap opera. I don't really watch any, so
I mean, either.
I don't know, but I wouldn't surprise me if that's how they solve most of their problems anyway.
Well, they have lots of weird things. Where there was one where I don't know if Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio, they had a ladder match for custody of Rey Mysterio's child.
All right, who won?
Where they had a briefcase with a contract with like the adoption papers or something, and then you had to climb a ladder and whoever got the briefcase first won.
Why did he want the child?
Something like in kayfabe, Eddie Guerrero had an affair with Rey Mysterio's wife at the time, so he was like, "It's my child," and then Rey was like, "It's my child. I've raised him." So then they just had a ladder match.
Amazing. Okay, see, this is the stuff they don't tell you about wrestling.
No,
Yeah.
this is like the best stuff because it's just so ridiculous that it's funny.
So any other really standout storylines then? I think that might be my new
was one-
favourite, but
In a different, they have these things like something on a pole match. So they'll stick a big pole somewhere, and then whoever grabs the thing first from the pole wins. And in a different company, they had a Judy Bagwell on a pole match, where Judy Bagwell just stood at the top of this thing on a pole, and whoever touched her first won the match.
right.
That was a good one as well.
Oh, I mean, where do they come up with it? God,
No, that company went out of business.
no. How did that happen?
That they also had David Arquette win their world championship.
Okay. Right. Well, I've understood why they went out of business.
Like they were making a film that David Arquette was in, and they had all their like wrestlers go and be in the film. It was promotion, I guess. They had David Arquette come and wrestle, and then he won the championship.
I have a feeling I might have known what the film is.
To Rumble?
Yeah, I feel like I've seen, maybe not, I feel like it's been something that was on TV, and I just kind of saw bits of it, but, oh dear. Okay. Not a good film from what I remember, the bits I saw.
I haven't seen it, but I can imagine.
So again, I'm understanding how they went out of business, if that was their real wrestlers. Now it's all, so from when I was, like, kind of more aware of it, I should say, like probably when I was at school and there were a lot of my school friends that were watching it and that, it seems like now it's very different from it when it was back then.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's sort of all one company now, more so than back then.
There's more like little indie companies that are getting bigger now than I think there were sort of in like I don't know when you were at school.
I don't know, let's go 20 years ago maybe, something like that.
20 years ago there was like WWE or WWF it was then.
Yeah. I remember it being WWF. That was...
Yeah, they had to change because the Wildlife Fund sued them.
Yeah, because all these pandas were getting hit by chairs and stuff and they just didn't like it.
There was like WCW and WWF. And WCW the one that put David Arquette as their champion and had a Judy Bagwell on a pole match.
Right. And then they got bought out by
WWE.
Yeah, okay.
But they had like 5 or so years of the Monday Night Wars where both of their like flagship shows were on at the same time on a Monday night, which I didn't watch it then. That was when I was like a baby.
Yeah, which is, I mean, sounds crazy to me because I imagine like if somebody's really into wrestling, I reckon they'd probably be happy to watch both shows. Just put them
probably
on.
Would, but I think it's more just the companies didn't want the competition, I guess.
But put them on at different times, you both win.
Whereas
there's
so,
something
like,
better
back then, they sort of had the competition to make them better. Whereas now, they are the biggest company, like wrestling company, by a mile. Like the next biggest one is either like Ring of Honor or New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Never heard of either.
Yeah.
So
no, everyone's heard of WWE at least, but no one has, unless you're into wrestling, like you haven't even heard of them.
What is it then? So like start again. You liked it as a kid. You kind of left it. And now you said you've gotten back in a big way.
Yeah.
So how much are you watching wrestling at the moment?
I don't have the channel that it's on.
That's convenient.
So I watch all the highlights. I watch all the highlights on YouTube for like So they have shows on a Monday and a Tuesday,
Right.
for those, and then once a month they have a big pay-per-view, which is where like all the feuds settle. They have all the big matches, all the championships are on the line, things like that. And I watched those. There was one on last night.
Oh, really?
I haven't watched it yet. In like US time, so it starts like 1 a.m. here.
Well, I appreciate
I can't be
you
dealing with that.
coming on to record a podcast instead of watching all the highlights of this
I
very
can go
important
watch
event.
it afterwards.
So we really thank you for making us the priority. That warms my heart to know. But now that you've mentioned this, I've suddenly understood why I was so aware of wrestling. I remember having Sky growing up and them always pushing the pay-per-view like, oh, you know, this month, and as you said, 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, and they're sort of.
I was so jealous as a kid. My friend would always, his parents would let him pick like 2 a year to watch, and he'd get to like stay off school the next day, and they'd record it, and he'd get up early and watch it the next day. But they cost like 40 quid. So my mum was like, you can't for like 3 hours. You can't spend 40 quid. You're not doing it.
No, I think your mum's right. But also, if you're recording it, why are you staying off school the next day? And
I think it was just
like if you're staying off school, just stay up and watch it.
Like he was probably just like fell asleep and then would watch the rest of it the next day. That's what I do now anyway.
Yeah, like I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna watch this whole thing, and then you wake up. What happened? Who won?
I've done that before. I've woken up, I've fallen asleep and then woken up like at the end of the last match, and then found out who's like won the big match, and I'm like, oh, I've ruined it for myself.
Do you think that's because when you start hearing the free count, the trauma of your brother breaking the lamp just snaps you back awake, and you just having nightmares again?
It's the one, and then the slap of the hand on the mat. It brings me out of anything.
Yeah, you just wake up screaming, "No, the lamp!" And then...
Exactly that. Yeah.
So so we went about the wrestlers you liked and didn't like back in the day, and you've already mentioned this one that whose name I've already forgotten, but you said that they're trying to push as a big name face and everybody hates. What about you? Who are your go-to wrestlers at the moment?
I really like Kevin Owens. He's a heel, but he's sort of like smart heel. So he won't just like beat people up, cheat to win, and he's really funny when he talks to the crowd, and just in general, I think he's really good. And he's quite like a big guy. Like he's quite tall, and he's quite like, he doesn't look like a stereotypical like muscular wrestler, but he does like front flips off the ropes and stuff.
Yeah, I imagine
it's insane.
For like a big guy, that's not easy to do.
There was this one match. It was like his first. So WWE, they have like a developmental brand called NXT, and then they'll get called up to like the big leagues, sort of like a promotion. The more you talk about it, like the more complicated it gets.
Yeah, I don't realize how many wheels are spinning behind the scenes. They just get in a ring and slap each other. What's the problem? No. No, you got to go through NXT. You got to get promoted up to the big leagues, and you got to have people boo you. Then you got to come out and shout at them. Oh.
His first match on the big leagues was against John Cena, so that kind of proves like how much they liked him at the time.
Yeah, I mean that's quite a promotion, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, he did this move where he was standing on like, so you know there's like 3 rope. He was standing on the top rope and then did like a 360 twist and like body slammed John Cena, and it was like the best thing I've ever seen. And he is like I said, he's quite like a big guy, and I was just taken aback at that moment. I was like, oh, I love you.
Yeah, and not ashamed to say it.
I went in to like work the next day and I was like, everyone needs to watch this. It's on YouTube. Go watch it. It's like the best match I've ever seen, and no one cares because.
Yeah, I was going to ask what was the reaction.
It's one of those things where I don't know how many people like it, because you talk to people and no one ever says they like it.
Yeah, but then they go home and secretly.
It's like, unless you're like you could talk to someone and just be like, I like wrestling, and they'll be like, me too, but like you've known them for years and they've never mentioned it before.
Yeah, it's almost like a secret shame.
It is. It's like everyone who likes it, it's like a guilty pleasure.
Yeah, you need like a code, maybe like a word or something you can just sort of drop into conversation and just see if anybody kind of catches the bait. You know?
Just walk past people in the street and go kayfabe, and they'll be like, oh.
What did he say? He's one of
Seeing
us.
Seeing people wearing wrestling shirts in public.
Yeah, you see it now and again, but not very much. It's true. I wonder, do you think it's become more acceptable with, like, again, you think of like comic book culture and things like that suddenly now it's, well, let's say mainstream, you see so many people wearing Marvel t-shirts or less DC t-shirts for some reason.
I wonder why.
Movies might have something to do with that, but it seems so much more acceptable now, and especially with things like Star Wars as well, and it's like it's very acceptable for people to wear that, whereas in the past people were a little bit more like, oh, you read comic books, or oh, you like Star Wars. Is it happening a similar thing with wrestling, that it's becoming more acceptable? Or I mean, not that it's
way around.
Not that it's unacceptable, guy. Like what you like. I don't care. I'm gonna get a lot of angry tweets going, how dare you? All of those things are fine. Like what you like. Doesn't bother me. I'm just trying to talk about the general public.
I feel with wrestling it's sort of gone the other way around, where like in the 90s when you had like Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock and all that stuff, that was when it was cool to like wrestling.
Right.
And now it's because that was the time where like they were like swearing, and Stone Cold would like drink beers and he would beat up the boss, and it was really cool. And now it's just sort of like PG era.
Okay.
That's what they are at the moment. So there's no swearing. Like they're not allowed to bleed anymore.
Oh no.
To do this thing called blading, where they would like get hit in the head and they'd have a little like blade on them, and then they'd slice their forehead to make them bleed.
Right.
More, which is probably a good thing for like health and safety.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, be amazed that they'd let you slice your face open in a public.
Sometimes they still do it though, and they just deal with like the fine. I'm guessing you've heard of the Undertaker. He's like one of the biggest of all time.
Yeah.
And Brock Lesnar.
Yes, he's like a monster of a man, if I'm not wrong.
He is a monster of a man. Yeah, he's doing UFC as well now. He is just an animal.
Yeah, I'm trying to think why was he in any like films or anything? I just feel like I've seen him.
I don't think
around
so.
Something. He seemed very. He's kind of weird to look at almost. Oh no, he might hear this.
He looks like a big potato man and he's got a big like knife tattooed on his chest, and it looks a bit weird.
Oh, I'd never seen that. Is that like a new edition?
I think it's like a couple years old now.
Right, yeah. I just remember seeing this neck, like this giant neck.
He does.
Like, who's that? And so I was like, oh, that's Brock Lesnar. He's a wrestler. I was like, wow, that's the widest neck I've ever seen in my life.
I know, he's a very scary man. I don't think he's a very nice man either.
All right, I know now where I've seen him. Is there a picture or a video or something of him like doing his like move on a shark?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I've seen. I don't know what that says about me. I don't know what that says about him, but that's what I've seen.
I've also seen. There's also Randy Orton has a very like famous move that's been memed a lot called an RKO.
Right.
He sort of like grabs their head over his shoulder and jump, and then there's loads of. I'm pretty sure that's been memed with a shark as well.
Oh, really? Poor sharks.
I know. They're just out there trying to live, trying to like keep the food chain going, and then they're just getting beaten up by wrestlers.
Yeah. I wonder if that will ever be a main event. Just a tank. Here's a shark. Go.
I feel like they've probably done it before, where they've wrestled a bear or something. Like, not that I know of, but I wouldn't be surprised if at some point someone wrestled a bear.
That's probably what alerted the WWF. That got them, hey, we were fine with you having the same initials as us, but now you've made it personal.
Oh, you're fighting bears. Come on, guys.
So, is there anyone then that you really don't like at the moment?
Not anyone that I like, sort of actively dislike. There's just a lot of people that I don't care about.
Probably you don't know off the top of your head, but like, let's say even big-ish names. How many have you got running at one time?
There's usually about 10 to 12 matches. There'll be like 10 to 12 stories, and then some of those are tag teams, so those will be like 4 people. And then there are some people that are in stories, but they don't get their matches on pay-per-view because it's not like a big enough story.
Which, I mean, do they have any, like, I don't know how much you know about the kind of behind the scenes of it all, but like, how much control does an actual wrestler have over that?
Not really any. So basically, like, you probably have Vince McMahon. He's like the owner of the company.
Yeah.
So he'll be like, you're going to feud with you. You're going to feud with you. You're turning heel. You're turning face, whatever. They'll sort of choose their character, also told how to act. Then you have people below him, like, that are called road agents. And they are the people that put together the matches. So they'll be like, so you'll off and you do a clothesline, and then you'll do your big move, and then you'll win at the end. So they sort of like plan out the matches. So the actual wrestlers, I don't think they really have that much control over what happens.
So it's kind of, I suppose it's a difficult situation, because like if you think of any other sort of sport, because I don't, even, do we rank it as a sport or as like a television show? It's quite difficult to
sports entertainment.
Yeah, because my thought is that, like, if you're an athlete in anything else, if you put in the work, like, it's kind of up to you how good you are, if that makes sense.
They have the same sort of thing where if you don't work hard enough, you won't get put into storylines.
Yeah.
You work hard and you have to have a good attitude and you have to, like, be over with the crowd. So, like, the crowd have to like you.
See, I think that's probably the thing that makes it hard, because you generally, like, people that are very good. I'm just going to alienate another whole subset of people now. People who are very good, like, at a sport, spend a lot of time dedicated to that sport, or to training, to working out, to doing these things. And quite often it means that they're not always the most, like, entertaining person to speak to, because their mind is focused on kind of one thing. Whereas here, surely, you're talking about falling off a ladder, being thrown through a table, whatever. So you need to be in incredible shape. So you've got to spend a lot of time training, choreographing these matches, sort of like doing all of that, but at the same time have a personality.
Yeah, I know. They have to do acting lessons as well.
Have they done them though?
That was
because I've seen some of these guys actually in acting roles in movies, and it's there's a reason that people talk about ones like The Rock being, he was a good actor as well, because it's so rare to find a wrestler who's also a good actor.
The Longest Yard, the Adam Sandler film. All of the prison guards in that are just wrestlers.
Yeah, well, there you go. I don't know if that's an argument for or against what I've just said, but
I think it's pretty for what you said.
Yeah, I'm now having some flashbacks to that movie and just remembering, yes, they're all huge, but very kind of stiff and very wooden sort of acting.
WWE also have their own movie studio.
I am aware of that. I've occasionally come across some of their movies.
All of them are just so bad.
And very quickly turned them off, yeah.
They have like 5 films in a series called The Marine. First most like cookie cutter action film you could think of, but with bad acting.
Yeah. Oh dear. They must be making money from it though, if they're doing it.
Wrestling fans get so into it that it's sort of like they have the same relationship with wrestling as Star Wars fans have with Star Wars.
All right, they all hate each other.
But they love it so much, they hate it. And if they like someone that you don't, then you're wrong and you're an idiot.
All right. So
get so crazy that they just watch like everything, and they're like, everything they do is amazing. They can't do anything wrong.
It's so weird though, because it's not weird. That's not right. I'm sorry. You like this? I don't want to.
So weird. It's fine. I'm used to. I've had this for years. I'm used to people.
I just mean like it's weird that they get. Do you feel then? This is what I'm trying to get to in a very roundabout way. Again, like, you know how you get those stories of people that write in to actors on like soap operas, and they are convinced they're real people. Like, I can't believe you did this to her, or I can't believe you did that to him, and they're writing sort of as if these are real people. Do you feel there's a percentage of the fan base that are, I don't want to say fooled, but are kind of so engrossed in it that they view them as real people, despite all the social media and all the other... Because I suppose years ago that was easier to happen, but now, you see all the behind the scenes, so it's quite difficult to be so fooled. But yet, do you feel that happens?
Yeah, not that I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I'm sure there must be. I'm sure, like, when I was a kid, I did, but I'm sure there must be adults. Like, there's this really famous video of this guy, like, crying and being like, "It's still real to me, damn it!" I don't know if you've seen it, but he's like a grown man, like, sobbing. I
shouldn't laugh, but I do.
No, that is funny though.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that there's so many sort of I was going to say, I suppose it's just more pop culture, like images that immediately spring to your mind when you think of wrestling and wrestling fans, and it's the big crowds holding up the signs with sort of all the slogans, and it's just, it seems like it hasn't, like, from someone who's not really following it, it looks like it's not changed at all over the past however many years. But I guess it has. Has it grown? Is it so different now, or do you think somebody who watched it 20 years ago could just start watching it now and be like, oh yeah, I understand what's going on. It's all pretty much the same.
The moves, they've got to do like a lot more to impress people now. So it's a lot more dangerous than it used to be. Because like back like 20, 30 years ago, you could just like do a clothesline. You just run your arm at their chest, and you could win on that. And now you have people doing like splashes off the top rope, diving over the top ropes in every single match, just because they're used to seeing those old moves that it's not impressive anymore. So like, I think now newer people are coming up, they have to try and do like more and more to impress people.
Is this leading to more and more accidents and injuries and things like that? Or because again, like, I don't care how professional you are, you're still gonna hurt yourself.
Yeah, people still get hurt all the time.
Yeah, I
think that's just part of it. When you get into it, you just have to like, expect that you're gonna get hurt.
So how long are their careers usually then? Because you've mentioned some names that I remember hearing, as I said, like 20 years ago. Are these people still actually around now? Because you'd think that these would be quite short careers because of the damage they are inflicting on their body, but it seems like the same wrestlers are around for quite a long time.
Kane is still going.
How is he still going?
He wrestled yesterday.
Yeah? Is he like as good as he was? Like, is it noticeable that you've been around for a long time? You know, is it like an old man wrestling, or is it, oh, he's just like everybody else wrestling at that time?
He's always been quite like a big man. Yeah. He's always been quite slow anyway.
Yeah.
So it's not like oh, well, he used to be able to like run around really quick and now he's sort of sluggish. Like everything he does is just sort of like a big, powerful man. So I think he's probably just about as good. The Rock still comes back every now and again.
Really? I didn't know that. I thought he had left that all behind.
No, he said in an interview the other day that he can't wait to get back in the WWE ring.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
He could go.
That's interesting.
Stone Cold Steve Austin, who was probably like one of the biggest names of all time, up with like Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan's just apparently been re-signed as well, so he'll probably have a comeback match soon.
Really? Because I thought the world hated him at the moment.
Yeah, the world does hate him. So I don't know how it's going to go.
Yeah, because I'm sure there was like a documentary that popped up on Netflix the other day that was all about him trying to get like some paper silenced because they were releasing some article about him and stuff. And it's just sort of very, yeah, the stories you're hearing surrounding him aren't the most pleasant things. So I kind of imagined there was this idea of sort of trying to distance themselves from him a little bit.
As soon as all that stuff came out a couple of years ago, they like fired him on the spot,
yeah.
And they haven't been in contact with him. But then in the last like year or so, they've sort of documentaries that they've done,
yeah,
and they're sort of like I think they're just sort of like testing the water.
How old is he now, though?
Oh, I'm going to Google that. He must be at least like 60.
How can you?
Maybe older.
I mean, is that a good idea for him to come back? I don't see what you can. I mean, unless it's purely like a money grab. But surely you want to be, because he came back once before, if I'm not wrong. I remember hearing about that, like the return.
He left to go to WCW,
right?
And then when they bought the company, he like made his big return.
Okay, and already then I think he was quite old at that point.
Oh, he must have been like 44 then. If that was like 20 years ago.
Like that sounds old to me for somebody who's in a sport, because generally you're not that old, and that's in a sport that you're not getting thrown around and kicked and launched, out of a cannon or whatever else they're doing to these people. But I just wonder how like entertaining that can be, because surely as amazing as it might be to have this person come back, you've just said like the newer wrestlers, they've had to escalate the degree of their moves because, well, these old moves, they don't work anymore. You need, it's all about the spectacle.
Like Hulk Hogan's big move is that he does a leg drop, so the person will be laying on the floor and he'll walk over and then like drop his leg on their chest.
See, that's probably my biggest issue with wrestling is the finishing moves, because like as you said, sometimes it would, if you're gonna pick somebody up, like carry them to the top of the ring, like up on the ropes, jump off and slam them down on the floor, that's going to hurt a lot. So I get that. But then if your finishing move is just, I'll just drop my leg on them, or I'll just hit them with, the side of my arm, but as I'm falling in a certain way, that's not going to do anything. Just because you gave it a flashy name, that does not increase the power of, there are forces at work here, physics, gravity, all of that. I refuse to accept this.
Probably my favourite one at the moment. They changed the name. It used to be called the Curb Stomp, which doesn't sound very good.
That doesn't sound very good at all.
Yeah. and basically the person will be on their like hands and knees. This guy, he's like the most popular wrestler at the moment. He's incredible, and he'll like run up and put his foot on the back of their head and just like slam it into the mat.
Yeah. So if there are any parents at home listening, and your children are
Yeah,
trying
don't do
to get you to let them watch wrestling, and you've been telling them it's not good for you, it's too violent, it's just people beating each other up, this isn't entertainment. Once again, here's a little audio clip you can probably just cut out and just play it to yourself now and again.
They banned that move for like 3 years.
Well, I'd say rightly. You see, this is interesting because this is probably the first time I've spoken to someone about wrestling since my new role as a father. And so I'm viewing things in a very different way from when I was at school and my friends were telling me about the wrestling match they'd seen. I don't want my son watching this. I want to see.
They have banned quite a lot of stuff from probably when you were at school.
Yeah.
There was this really famous thing where it's called a pile driver, where basically they'll pick you up and your head will be between their legs, and then they'll like drop down. So your head's supposed to be like an inch above the floor, blocked by the legs, so the audience can't see that it doesn't hit the floor.
Yeah.
But there was this really famous botch where his head is like an inch beneath his legs, so he just drops down right onto his neck.
Yeah.
Out for like over a year, had to have like spinal surgery, and then after that they banned that move.
And I mean, the guy's going, I just remembered it was something about an inch. I just couldn't remember if it needed to be an inch up or an inch down. I just knew there was an inch.
Needed to be an inch up, definitely.
Yeah. So, I mean, really, it's not my fault. I don't think the direction was that clear. There wasn't a diagram. I was holding the diagram upside down. I think that's the problem.
The thing is, like, he broke his neck and he still got up and finished the match.
Yeah, which is equal parts impressive and insane.
Well, there's like this thing in wrestling where during a match and you don't finish it, that's like the ultimate disrespect to your opponent.
To your opponent who just broke your neck. How dare you disrespect me?
There was a guy who like broke his finger and then he called off the match, which like understandable. If you're like playing football and you break your finger, you'd want to be subbed off. But everyone hated him for like years because he was like, oh, people have done so much worse than that. People have like torn ligaments and finished, and he just broke his finger.
Yeah, well, I did break my arm playing football once, and because I got a lift to where we were playing and had no way to get home by myself, I did have to play the whole match. and this was oh wow, we're going to my history here. This I think was the third time I'd broken my arm in my life, and so this time I knew. The first time I didn't think I'd broken my arm because it wasn't like hanging off like I imagined it would be, but this time. Like I got tripped by someone, fell, put my arms down to stop me, just felt it go, and I said, "I'm pretty sure I've broken my arm." No, there's no way. No, you haven't. It doesn't look broken. With their X-ray
like
vision,
manager, like, "I'll have an orange slice and some water, and you'll be fine."
This was just among friends. This was the annoying thing. And and then the guy who had tripped me up initially drove me home later, and then I had to go and get the X-ray, and surprise, surprise, it was broken. So, been there, done that. But yeah, I didn't get an award.
My favourite thing about football injuries is when they come out with like the spray bottle.
Right.
Rolling on the floor, they're like, I've like broken my knee, and they just do a few little sprays of this water, and then it's like in Space Jam when they drink the magic water and get really good at basketball.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe there's something to that. Do they have that in wrestling? Maybe they need to get it.
They don't. No.
Broken your neck.
No, sometimes they fake an injury.
So you've got people that have like literally broken their neck, and they're saying, "Well, I better keep going," and then there's somebody who's just pretending to.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Well, I can't continue because I've really hurt my big toe. Oh no, it's all over."
There was a match for like the women's championship where the champion was like double jointed, but no one knew, and she like popped her elbow out of her socket. Ooh. So it sort of went the other way, so it looked like she'd really badly broken her arm. And then everyone was like, "Oh my god, what's going on?" And she popped it back in, and then did her finishing move and won, and it was great.
Yeah, that is impressive, actually. I'd admit that.
Well, that is another thing that's changed a lot. Women's wrestling has come on so much.
Yeah, so we'll spend a minute on that then. So that, because I feel like once upon a time they were just, arm candy on the male wrestlers.
Bra and panties matches, where to win you had to pull off all your opponent's clothes, so they were just in their bra and pants.
Right. So, very dignified. There we go.
Whereas now they've like main evented pay-per-views. They've got 2 championships. They actually give them storylines that aren't just like you cheated on your boyfriend with someone else and stuff like that. Like they actually give them so long, but they just get treated like the male wrestlers.
Yeah. Has that brought in more female fans, or it's still kind of the same?
So yeah, I think it's just more. They've got more respect.
Yeah.
Apart from they did a show in Saudi Arabia a few months ago. So they weren't allowed any women on the show. Apparently they just paid loads of money.
Yeah, well, money talks, doesn't it? So you want to pay us loads of money? What's there? No women? Fine. Here we go.
But in general, like generally over the past, even just the past like 5 years, they've had like this. They call it like a woman's revolution. Stephanie McMahon, who is now one of the owners, philanthropy is the newest form of advertising or something.
Right.
It's a good thing to say, is it? And they do loads of charity work. Now that's all like tainted.
Yeah, which is ironic because it's exactly what everybody's doing, but they just don't say it.
I know. It's like everyone knows this. You don't bring it up. It's fine.
People can pretend that they don't realise, but now you've really just shone a spotlight on it. Well, at this moment, usually quite a bit ago, but we'll do it right now.
I'm sorry, I've talked a lot. I apologise.
Right. That's good. Don't worry. Hopefully it will all make it in. So normally I pass over to you and let you ask me some questions on your topic. That is, so what's your topic? It's not wrestling. I'm going to say it's WWE.
WWE.
That was more specific, yeah. So, over to you. What do you want to ask me about the WWE?
Do you have any like specific memories of a match that you've watched at any point? Have you ever like watched a match?
Yeah, I'd say I've seen matches. Surely, anything that probably more because I've seen it in like a sort of where it's been almost mainstream newsworthy, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah.
So I think there were. I'm trying to think which ones kind of jump out, but there are a few. Like generally, to be honest, generally the tragedies that become sort of newsworthy, where they've led to serious injuries or death.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the one. I can't remember his name now. I want to say Hart.
Oh, Owen Hart.
Owen Hart. Yeah, is that the one that fell from the? It was like being lowered.
Yeah, he was getting like ziplined across the arena, and the rope snapped or something.
Yeah, so they're the kind of ones that sort of make it out. No, probably not anything that really jumps out at me. This is more difficult than when I was asked about a comic book storyline. I couldn't find an answer to that one either. No, I feel like I saw some stuff about as I mentioned earlier, like when Hulk Hogan came back. I think, did he fight The Rock? Did that happen like on a big, on like
icon, something like that?
Yeah, I feel like that was being shown around a lot and looked really bad.
Fair enough.
just because he was kind of old, and because I wasn't of the like Hulk Hogan generation. I'm not that old.
Yeah.
So I just was like, I remember seeing him in some terrible movies, and then he like, oh, there's this, Hulk Hogan is going back to wrestling. Oh wow, really amazing. And then it's like, who is this old guy? Why do people like him so much? And I was amazed to find out like he really never had hair.
No, he didn't, did he?
I thought that was like, oh, he's old, so he didn't have hair. And then I'm like, oh no, I've seen now older pictures and images of him.
Just always had that look.
Yeah, funny. I think his best role was in. There's a wrestling match that stands out. Hulk Hogan versus Rocky Balboa. Yeah, that was interesting. I don't remember which Rocky movie that was in, but I know it was in one of them.
I haven't seen any Rocky films, so I'll take your word for it.
Yeah? Oh, just Google that then. So
would you let your son watch wrestling?
Well, I'm going to say that my son, he just wouldn't want to watch it. We went and saw The Incredibles the other day, and he didn't like...
that tomorrow. I'm so excited.
He didn't like parts of it. I won't say which parts, but he like really didn't like it. It was just freaking him out. And I think for him, just like wrestling is probably the furthest thing from what he finds entertaining. He's a sweet boy. Don't know where he gets it from. Like, he has all these comic book character kind of figures, like big one, like the big like Titan series ones. But he just like was making them all shake hands and things.
That's like the cutest thing I've ever heard.
So we came in once, saw him playing with them. He's got them all set up, and they're just all friends. It's really nice. So
are they heroes and villains together?
I think they're all heroes, but there may have been. I think they're all heroes, but I think there was also like a Darth Vader in amongst them.
Okay. Are you tempted to go in and just be like, no, look, Batman and the Joker can't be friends?
Yeah, they can be friends. Maybe they should be. Maybe that's the solution.
Should be, really.
Oh, I'd like to see Batman in a wrestling match. That would be interesting.
Who would he fight?
I don't know. Everyone. He'd just come in and say that, on his war on crime, he's realised that these criminals start because they grew up watching wrestling.
They do all have like weird gimmicks that some of them are criminals.
Yeah, there you go. That would be it. That's my stance now. Batman has decided he's starting too late. He can't wait for them to become crazed career criminals. He's got to go to the source, and the source is that people are letting their kids watch wrestling, and they're growing up and turning into the Joker. It will be when the Joker will reveal that the reason he became the Joker is because he used to watch wrestling. There we go. Done.
Like
DC, hit me up. I've got a story for you. And WWE, if you want, we can do some kind of crossover with DC. It'll be wonderful. To be honest with you, it will probably be more successful than the majority of the movies that have come out in the DCEU at the moment.
Sick burn.
Yeah, and as I'm on record of saying, I'm a huge DC fan. So,
like, for me, DC comics are better than Marvel.
They're so much
better.
Are
just bad films.
It's so sad. I know. It's the pain I live with, but what can we do? Well, Charlie, thank you very much for delaying watching this pay-per-view event that you eager to see who won how many matches did you say it was? Like 14 matches, something ridiculous like that?
Something like 10-ish maybe, something like that. I'm not really sure.
So I know you've got a long afternoon ahead, so we'll wrap it up now. So if anybody wants to hear more of your opinions, they can do so about. It's kind of a movie podcast, right? Kahuna podcast.
It's a movie podcast where we end up going on loads of tangents with me and my friend Ollie. We talk about wrestling sometimes as well. He likes wrestling too.
So you did find someone. That's a nice positive thing to end this.
He's a bit of a fake fan, to be honest.
The worst kind.
No, he's a lovely boy.
He's a nice guy, but not a good wrestling fan.
He's very.
So, if people want to find you, they can go to the Big Kahuna podcast. Do you have Instagram, Twitter that they can follow?
We have Instagram at It's Big Kahuna Pod or Twitter at Big Kahuna Pod. We usually do like a debate question at the end of an episode, and we'll put a poll up on Twitter so you can vote on whoever you think is right, and then we talk about it in the next one.
Okay. Well, so we'll put all the links in the description, so if anybody wants to head on over there and jump in on some of these debates, that's going to be the easiest way to do that. Obviously, you can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at ACW Pod, or you can just visit the website, aconversationwithpod.com, and all the information you need is there as well. So thank you once again, Charlie, and that just leaves us to say goodbye, everybody, and see you next week.